Cancer feels before it thinks. That's not a weakness or a quirky personality trait. It's a way of processing the world that starts in the body, in instinct, in that vague sensation that arrives before there are words to explain it. People with this energy strong in their birth chart know what it's like to walk into a room and immediately sense that something is off, even when nobody has said a word. They know what it's like to remember things with an almost startling emotional precision, to hold on to the details of a conversation from years ago, to notice the shift in someone's tone of voice when that person says they're fine, but clearly isn't. Cancer perceives, and from that perception, it builds relationships, makes decisions, protects what it loves, and tries to create something that feels like safety. It's the fourth sign of the zodiac, and that position is not accidental. After Aries ignites the impulse, Taurus grounds it, and Gemini puts it into words. Cancer arrives to ask how all of that actually feels. It's the first water sign of the zodiac, which means its way of moving through life isn't primarily linear or rational. It's fluid, emotional, intuitive. Water doesn't break through walls head-on. It moves around them, seeps through them, wears them down over time. That's how Cancer operates. It doesn't always go straight at things, but it goes deep. Its modality is cardinal, which places it alongside Aries, Libra, and Capricorn as an initiating sign. There's something in Cancer that isn't always easy to see at first glance: the capacity to take action when something it loves feels threatened. This is not a passive sign, not one that simply waits for others to decide. It can be enormously active in the realm of care, emotional support, and the creation of spaces where people feel at home. That action just doesn't always take the most visible form of leadership. Often, the person who quietly holds a group together, who remembers what matters to each individual, who notices when someone needs help before they ask for it, is someone with a lot of Cancer energy in how they function. The moon rules this sign, and that says everything about its relationship to cycles, internal states, and sensitivity to its surroundings. The moon shifts constantly through its phases, and Cancer tends to carry something of that same quality inside. There are days of fullness and days of withdrawal, moments of openness and moments when the shell closes without warning. Not because Cancer is moody or unstable in some shallow sense, but because its energy is deeply connected to what it's feeling in any given moment, to what it needs, to the emotional atmosphere around it. Learning to live with those cycles, rather than resist them, is a significant part of Cancer's process. In relationships, Cancer can offer something not every sign delivers so naturally: genuine presence. Not a decorative or inconsistent kind of presence, but the kind where someone actually remembers, listens, shows up, and takes care from a real place. When Cancer connects with someone, it doesn't do it halfway. It picks up on preferences, worries, and silences. It has the ability to appear exactly when it's needed, even without being asked. That capacity for care is one of its most authentic strengths, but care without limits becomes a burden. And that's where one of Cancer's greatest challenges lives: the tendency to give more than it can sustainably hold, to take on other people's emotional weight as if it were its own, to put everyone else's needs first without stopping to ask what it actually needs itself. Cancer can end up exhausted from taking care of everyone around it and still keep going, because stepping back generates guilt or a feeling of having abandoned someone. Learning that caring for yourself isn't selfishness, but rather the necessary foundation for caring well for others, is a lesson Cancer usually arrives at gradually, and not without some effort. In love, this energy looks for depth. It doesn't settle for surface connection or relationships without roots. It needs trust, time, and real intimacy. Cancer can be tender, present, protective, and capable of an emotional investment that's rare to find. But it can also fall into the pattern of waiting for a partner to guess what it needs, of holding back what it feels to avoid looking vulnerable, of reading rejection into gestures that don't actually carry that meaning. Expressing one's own needs clearly and directly is an area where Cancer often has work to do. Not because it doesn't know what it wants, but because saying it out loud means risking a no, and that can feel like a threat to the emotional security it works so hard to protect. In friendship, Cancer is loyal in a way that doesn't expire easily. It remembers birthdays, difficult moments, conversations that happened years ago. It has the ability to make people feel genuinely seen and held. It tends to be the kind of friend who shows up during a crisis, who listens without judgment, who keeps what it's told with care. But it can also shut down when it feels hurt, pull back without explanation, carry resentment quietly, or wait for the other person to notice that something happened rather than saying so directly. When Cancer closes off, it can be hard to know what went wrong, because the retreat can be as quiet and gradual as a tide going out. At work, this energy tends to stand out in environments where the human element actually matters. It has a sharp intuition for emotional climates, for understanding what a team needs, for sustaining processes with consistency over time. Cancer can be deeply committed when it feels that what it's doing is meaningful, that its contribution is recognized, and that there's a real connection to the purpose behind the work. Where it tends to struggle is in cold, highly competitive, or impersonal environments, or in situations where it doesn't feel acknowledged. Cancer's motivation is strongly tied to a sense of belonging. It needs to feel that it's part of something, not just filling a role. When it comes to discipline and habits, Cancer can be remarkably consistent when it's emotionally invested in a goal. It doesn't necessarily approach things in the most efficient or analytical way, but it can sustain a process for a long time when it genuinely feels that it matters. The difficulty comes when the emotional load gets too heavy, when something in its environment becomes destabilized, when the internal state is turbulent. In those moments, Cancer may lose its rhythm, turn inward, and need time to regroup before it can return. Understanding that rhythm without judging it as a flaw is part of what it means for this energy to mature. The past carries real weight for Cancer. Memory isn't just an archive, it's something alive, something that actively shapes how the present gets perceived. Cancer can recall with striking emotional clarity how it felt in a specific situation, and that memory can have a powerful influence on its decisions today. That can be genuinely valuable. The accumulated experience, the wisdom that comes from having felt things deeply and worked through them. But it can also become a trap when old wounds start filtering every new experience. When a moment of abandonment from 10 years ago begins coloring every new relationship, or when the fear of going through that again blocks any real openness, Cancer has to ask itself whether it's responding to what's actually happening now, or to what happened before. Under pressure, this energy can close off, hold on too tightly, or react from a wound that hasn't fully healed. It can blur the line between caring and controlling, become emotionally demanding in ways that aren't always expressed directly, or stay in dynamics that no longer work, because the attachment to the connection runs stronger than the recognition that something needs to change. In a more balanced expression, Cancer can be intuitive, empathetic, and loyal, capable of building some of the warmest and most sustaining relationships that exist. It can create spaces where people genuinely feel safe, can accompany others with a depth that's hard to find elsewhere, and can remember and honor what matters in ways that make people feel truly seen. Cancer's energy is a reminder that feeling is not an obstacle. It's a way of knowing that caring for others is one of the most serious and demanding things a person can do. That emotional memory can serve as a compass or as a cage, depending on what you do with it. Cancer's growth lies in understanding that protecting doesn't mean closing yourself off, that caring doesn't mean dissolving into someone else, and that the most lasting sense of security doesn't come from what you receive from the outside. It comes from what you build within, with patience, with honesty, and with the same tenderness that Cancer so naturally extends to the people it loves.